right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for being here. I think you know the drill by this time. App, surveys, party, breakfast tomorrow. Anyone has any questions about any of those items, please raise your hand. With that said, when we get to questions, we are recording all of these sessions. They will be posted on the MarkLogic site afterwards with the slides, so no worries about that, but we do run around with microphones to make sure that your great questions get recorded as part of the session, so please be patient with that. So Puneet?
All right, how's everyone doing? All right, it's been a long day, I know. So we're going to be talking about streamlining claims, a better way of detecting insurance fraud. A little bit about me. I'm the guy who's standing in between you and the dinner. So I promise to make it short. So let's talk about this. So I know you guys have attended a lot of presentations today, so we'll use a little bit different format today. We'll do demos. I'll try to make my presentation part a little bit shorter, and we'll jump into demos. These demos are mostly going to be about insurance and mostly around insurance P&C, but those process of streamlining can be applied to any part of the business. It can be applied in finance, for example, in credit card frauds, or even detecting a similar type of objects in your company, for example, an MDM use case. So, but we're going to use this and apply it to insurance fraud, and since this example is easier to understand, so we'll just follow that. We'll talk about what tools and technologies are available out there, what is an industry trend. We'll talk about a new approach, call it a MarkLogic approach, followed by a couple of demos. We'll end it up with a summary and open it up for question and answers. So I just wanted to cover that first. I know, let me check this first. How many of you guys are from insurance industry? Quite a few. What about healthcare? Anyone from finance or banking? What about the rest of them? All right, so again, like I said, this is fine that we're going to be covering examples from insurance P&C, but even if you're not from insurance industry, you can still use that approach, apply to your business, and streamline the process of integrating different data sources together. And this is where the crux is. Your process of implementing a fraud policy or catching a fraud is only good as getting accessing different data sources. So with that, what I'm going to do is show you what exactly a fraud means to an insurance company, and for that I have a video. Let me play this one. All right, so as you saw, the person who just jumped in front of the car was trying to fake an accident, and to his bad luck there was a video camera installed, so we can easily declare this one as a fraud. But the reality is catching fraud is not that easy. Fraudsters here in US and all over the world are much more creative, and they keep on finding innovative ways to commit a fraud. So in order to catch those frauds, any organization needs to have these tools with them, these weapons they need to implement using the data sources that are available to them, or with the third-party data they can purchase. Things like business rules. To give you an example, in P&C, if a person just submitted a claim right after reducing the deductible on his policy, then you want to get alert about it. You want to know about it at least, that this has happened. Anomaly detection, where a claim is submitted for, let's say, a hailstorm, and the claim amount is higher than the claim submitted in your area. That's another alert. You can only know about these things if you're looking at all the information collectively. You want to get alerts about it as soon as these things are matched. You want to have this alerting and even processing engine built in. You don't want to wait for this process to be passed on to a third-party software, which would send out an alert. Predictive modeling, again, not a different concept. It can be applied to any business too. At the end, we'll talk about network analysis, and we've seen what MarkLogic can do on using semantics. So we'll use MarkLogic as a tool for network analysis, and how network analysis can help essentially solving the facts, accessing the information that you didn't know existed. And at the end, it's very important that all these 5 systems that you just saw can actually talk to each other. They can provide feedback. Any information collected at network analysis can be supplied to business rules. Business rules can actually get information from an anomaly detection. It's very important that these systems provide constant feedback to each other. So what are your options? The technology stack for implementing this is not simple. At current stage today, as of today, these are the list of things that you need in your technology stack. You need a database that would take your transaction, the operational load on the claims that are coming in. Since you are adding information to your claims, you're adding metadata, you need a metadata repository too. The traditional databases are not equipped to handle those kind of scenarios. So what you end up doing is creating another set of database for that. Now, claims have a variety of information, and about 80% of valuable information in a claim is in unstructured data. So you need a good search engine that can analyze and actually look into the facts within that unstructured information. Now, rule engine is something that would utilize the rules that you would define, and those rules could be some things like what do you call a fraud? What facts you look in a claim that would constitute a fraud? You need to be able to define those rules on ad hoc basis. And fraudsters, they will keep on innovating. They keep on finding new ways to commit a fraud. So your rules engine needs to be very flexible. There are a few other things that you need to be taken into account too, because machine learning and natural language processing is something that you have to deal with, because claims that's going to come in is going to have a lot of information that is not really readily readable or not easily understandable, just because of the nature of the business. When you're calling in about your claim, the person who's actually making notes is actually using different kind of abbreviations, making spelling mistakes. So you need a good NLP engine built in actually to be able to do that. Now, implementation alternative. What exactly you can do if you are a big insurer or a company that's implementing that fraud model? Then you have these options. Either you can buy a commercial package like Guidewire and SAS. They have their own fraud offerings. You can actually buy that and implement that. But the problem with that is those commercial packages is that they still rely on traditional technologies, relational databases. And we know that claims, they have a huge piece of information is unstructured data. Also, the objects that exist, the entity that exists in the claim, it could be very variable. Those entities are very hard to model in relational databases. Other thing I've seen is that whenever you bring those software into your organization, you have to go through a mapping exercise. That mapping exercise include mapping those software's vocabulary to your business. Your business may have 1,000 different attributes. You have to go through a mapping exercise to actually bring those in. You have to do that for every line of business. Every time you add a new line of business, let's say you were serving auto or you were serving a commercial line, and you just added workman's comp, you're going to have to go through the same exercise again. If the license itself for those commercial packages is not expensive enough, managing and maintaining this, it becomes very expensive. Other alternative is, again, the developer likes that. It's going the open source route. There are a variety of open source packages available. You can buy those. You can build tools on that. But even to do that, you end up integrating 6 or 7 or 8 or maybe 10 different kind of tools. The challenge being you have to keep them in sync. The search engine data that's available is going to read from transactional DBs. you need network analysis done. You need to do in-memory analysis. All those systems are typically separate systems together. What this causes is actually delay in claim processing. The claim that actually came in, your customers would have to wait for those claims to be processed. In worst case, you will just let the frauds go. You will not even try to catch those frauds because of this complexity available. At any given point of time, insurance company or a typical tier 1 fraud model that companies are trying to implement, they would have to take judgments based on how much effort they're going to have to put to find that fraud. And at most of the time, they would have to let those fraud go because it's just too expensive to catch. So what's the alternative? Is there what we call, this alternative is called the MarkLogic approach, the streamlining claims in MarkLogic. I was talking about that you can build better fraud models if you can access more information quickly. MarkLogic lets you do that. You can bring all different kind of information from all your line of businesses, whether it's a policy data, it's a claim data, or any other artifact that's related to a claim. You can bring all those into MarkLogic. So this part is important. I don't know if you guys have been to data workshop session in MarkLogic or not, but if you have not been, I would highly recommend you guys to actually register for one of the sessions. I know workshops are all sold out, but you can attend one of the on-demand training that's going to be available soon. But what this would allow you to, MarkLogic allows you to bring data from any format, from any source very easily into MarkLogic. This typically takes a lot of time in traditional systems. When the data is landed into MarkLogic, it's already indexed. MarkLogic has a search engine built in. You don't need to buy a separate search engine to analyze the unstructured nature of those claims. Those search engines are already built in. MarkLogic is a transactional database. So your claims, as they're processed, as they're submitted, can land directly into MarkLogic. We have a feature called reverse indexes. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but reverse indexes or reverse queries is quite opposite of search. The way in search what you do is you write a criteria and you find the document or the data that you're looking for. Reverse index is quite the opposite, where you're looking for the criteria. You have thousands of different queries that you can save in MarkLogic, and based on the data that comes in, you find what criteria are actually matching that. And this is very powerful. We'll look at the demo and how we can utilize this feature to speed up claims processing essentially. We have semantics already built in. I think we are the first NoSQL database that can analyze structured data, unstructured data, and the graph data within the same platform. So we have semantics built in, and we'll see some of the capabilities that would add to your business by using this feature, and I have this covered in a demo as well. Security is a key feature. That's where I see in the industry that a lot of systems are lacking. When you bring these systems together, auto, workman's comp, commercial policy, there's a lot of PII information. There's a lot of personal information in there. And thanks to MarkLogic 9, you can secure that information much easier now. When you're exposing this data to your for the statistical analysis, your actuaries, your data scientists, you don't have to give them addresses, person names, or even their social security number. You can hide that information, but still maintain the single copy of the data in the database. MarkLogic 9 will let you do that now. You can directly feed that data that you collected, that we are just going to use for the claim analysis or claims management, to your customer services. Now, customer can access the data that he is only entitled to see and nothing else. You can directly feed your customer portals from MarkLogic. So these are some of the features you can do. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to spend too much time on the presentation and jump directly on the demo now. The first demo is shortlisting claims for investigation. An insurance company would receive thousands of claims in a day. There's no way they can deploy resources to analyze each one of them. So what they have to do is they have to take a judgment call on what data sources or what claims they want to investigate on. They want to pick on the claims that are highly probable of a fraud. So to do that, what they can do is they can automate that process. And that's what we would be looking at in a second. And let me crank up the demo now. Is the font big enough for the people in the back? All right. Right, so this demo is using MarkLogic as a backend. Again, this is just a demo. I've loaded about 2,500 different claims from different line of business. They all talk about different problems or different issues that arise or different incident that happen in the claim. They are all loaded into MarkLogic along with rest of the data like policies and other information a company would use. As soon as the data is landed into MarkLogic, it's already searchable, it's already accessible. Using the APIs, I can go into the claim and see what exactly in there. Just to see what a claim looks like, I'm going to open one of that. You see, claim has the way again. I don't think I covered that. In MarkLogic, best way to store information is to denormalize. So what I've done is I've created a denormalized view of a claim where every information that's linked to it is actually lives in one document, one XML. It has a lot of structured information like potential liability, what state the accident happened, information about different parties involved, who was actually the one who's driving it, or in this case the construction worker that was actually part of this claim. But this also has the unstructured information, and this is the one I was talking about. In this example, it says that insured is GC. Now, I don't know what GC really means. I think it's called general coverage or something like that. But you could have a lot of abbreviation that is specific to your company, and that's why it's important that you can access this description column in this case that has a lot of unstructured information. That would be very valuable for claims analysis. Now, I was telling that as soon as we landed this data is already searchable. Now I can do searches like vehicle fire, and I can find the data that matches this criteria. It's going to search for all the claims that has a mention of vehicle and fire anywhere. Since we are a full-fledged search engine, we have search indexes as well as the search APIs. So using the search API, I can use Google-like searches. I can do vehicle near fire. Now it has reduced the search results to 14 results now. If you look closely, I'm getting much more relevant results now. And you can do things like that. Other thing, let me do another search here. So one of the common examples that fraudster uses is when you're trying to commit a fraud, not that I'm suggesting that you do, but a common fraud pattern is that people try to fake an accident, and they try to fake an injury that cannot be traced, that cannot be diagnosed. So one of the things is that I've seen in the industry is they call this one is a red alert keyword is called soft tissue damage or soft tissue injury. Again, very hard to detect, and you can match this with let's say if this was an auto claim, you can map this with all the vehicles that has a mention of soft tissue injury, and the vehicle was not traveling too fast. Let's say that vehicle was traveling between 50 to 40 miles an hour. Right away, I shortlisted my list of claims from 2,500 to 1 now. If I open this one, you would see that in the description, the insured employee was driving very slow, and it was a low impact hit, and the car was traveling between 20 to 30 miles an hour. You have to pay attention to this. This was the piece of information that was not available to me structurally. While loading, while bringing the data into MarkLogic, I was able to do enrichment within the same data set, and I stored the speed within the same data itself. Now this piece of information is available for me for my structured queries. So in this case, Mr. Jesse Pinkman who's, I don't know, who has seen the show Breaking Bad? I don't know. I want to make sure how many, all right, there are a few of them, okay. So Jesse Pinkman was a character who's known to be doing suspicious things. So I want to use this name here, so you're gonna remember that. But so in this case, he wasn't traveling too fast. He has a mention of soft tissue damage, so he matches all the criteria. What I just did was I just created a rule. I created a pattern that I want to analyze, and as soon as new claims comes in, I want to analyze those claims against this pattern. So I have a section called rules here. I pre-configured the system with eight new rules, and if I want, I can create new rules on the fly. My rules being, let me give you this example. Sudden stop in the middle of a freeway. That's another way of committing a fraud where I think I'm suggesting too many ways, but you should stop doing that. But so sudden stop in the middle of a freeway, that's a lot of insurance companies see that is when the car comes to a sudden stop in front of you and you get rear-ended, and the person who's in the car is now trying to fake an accident or fake an injury. So you want to cache those patterns in the data, and they're only available in unstructured text. And you can assign weight to it. Let's say I've given this as a 300 weight if that pattern is matched. You can combine this with things like your structured data, that I only care about claims that has a potential liability of more than 200,000. If those claims comes in, my weight is 400. Now your claims, as they come in, they would get scored. Claim scoring or a transaction scoring in the case of credit card frauds is a very common technique. You want to be able to know if that transaction or a claim is worth investigating or not. So what you do with that is you accumulate. As the claim comes in, this was the one claim that we were looking at from Jesse Pinkman. He has a fraud score of 700 now. Remember, these claims are calculated in real time. As the transaction happens, as more process happens, the claim score or the fraud score would change. So let me demonstrate that, and let's see if that makes any change. I'm just adding a note here, and I'm just simulating that you just added another artifact to this claim. For example, a police report saying that eyewitness reported that car in front came to a sudden stop. The same example we were talking about. As soon as I do that, add notes is going to add note, and if I refresh that and go back to score, the fraud score now has increased to 1,000. So this claim has just reached my threshold of 700. This was my criteria, that any claims that has a threshold of more than 700 or more would go for this for the further investigation, and we'll just talk about that, what exactly that means. Let me check this. How many people are here on the development side? And I want to make sure if I don't go too much detail on the technical side. Right, I think it's worth showing. Let me just open up quickly a query console and show you how these rules would look like. So I have a collection in my database called rules, and the rules that we just created is an XML document now. Let me see if I can increase the font a little bit. I think that's big enough. Right. So vehicle near fire, that was one of the rules that I created, and that gets stored in MarkLogic. I have a weight associated with it, and this gets stored as CTS query. I talked about using reverse indexes, and that's exactly what this is doing. You can literally have thousands of those rules, and as the claims comes in, only the matching rules would get executed. What that's doing is actually speeding up the claims process. You don't have to check each and every rule for the claims coming in. It would speed up the process of execution if you just find the rules that are matching. So in this case, the claim that Jesse Pinkman submitted, I was able to find only the rules that are matching. Let me open this. And if you look closely, I'm actually storing what rule was matched, what rule was matched, and what was the weight on it. And that's how I'm calculating the fraud score. I'm storing all the information in the header section of this claim itself. And this is the technique you will learn when learning Data Hub framework. You can store the information about your data within the data itself, and that gives a lot of power. If you have all the information available at one point, you can access it faster. So this is the way you can shortlist claim for investigation. Let me go back to the demo presentation again. But this is only the first part, and we can cover questions regarding that at the end of the session. But this was about shortlisting the claims. But what exactly happens? Can MarkLogic help you when the claims are shortlisted for investigation? The second part of the demo is investigation. When you want to look at a single claim and get as much information about that as possible. We're going to be using a method called network analysis, but essentially there are many methods out there. And typically, if you are from PNC insurance company, SIU, Special Investigation Unit, is the organization that is assigned to look at it. And what they want to do is they want to get detailed information. They'll spend hours and hours, days and days looking at the claims. But what you want to do is make them more efficient in doing their job. Give them information so that they can decide if a claim is a fraud or not as early as they can. So I'm going to jump to the second part of the demo. And let me go back and refresh. All right, all right, this looks good. So in this screen, this is very similar to the last one. This is just another demo built on top of MarkLogic. And we are a database company. We are not good at UI, so this is just a UI that I was able to bring it together. But the power of MarkLogic is that you can bring any data source when the investigation needs it. You can bring those external data sources quickly into MarkLogic. And SIU, who's actually trying to investigate the claim, he's going to try to access all the information possible about that claim. Who submitted that claim? Where did the car go? For which garage the car go? Which doctor was consulted? Who was the doctor essentially? Has the doctor been involved in any of the suspicious activity? So you can get all this information in MarkLogic, and you can store this information as objects, as entities. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open one claim that was submitted by this person, Jermaine Finlay. And you see there's an icon, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it says 31, which means that this person is linked to 31 more entities. And if I expand that, I get a network view of what else this person has been involved in. He's been submitting a lot of claims, for sure. He owns, so he used the services of Lee Montoya, and I can open that. And look at that, this was the mechanic he used. Now this information might be coming in from maybe an external data source or from the source that is curated by your insurance company. Let me open one more. So Jackson Harden was the doctor that was used in this case. So I was talking that SIU is only as effective as data. So for the purpose of this demo, what I did was I loaded a database of doctors that you can purchase. This is the list of doctors that have been involved in some of the suspicious activity in the past. They might have open cases in front of them, or they might have bad reviews on Yelp, whatever be the cases. But the fact is that you can buy data sources like that to make your investigation much more effective. We'll be using that for this demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find the same claim, sudden stop in the middle of freeway. and I found this guy. So this was the claim again submitted by our very own Jesse Pinkman, and now we made some progress on the claim too. If you look closely, it says the claimant later checked into a private clinic where the doctor confirmed the internal injury. So he has a confirmation now. And you have the doctor's address, Dr. Walter White. Again, if you have seen the Breaking Bad, you will get the joke. So this doctor is actually the one who's actually certifying that this is a real case, or this is not really a fraud. But as an SIU, I would suspect everything. I want to investigate if the doctor is real or not, if the doctor has done anything in the past. That would actually hint me that this is a fraud that's being tried to commit. So what I can do now is, since I have the doctor's database loaded, I can search inside that doctor's database. I can search for this name, and I found 2 records. One was the claim where the name of the doctor mentioned, and another one is another object, which is the doctor itself. Let me open this guy. I have the address, which is same as the one that's mentioned in my claim, so that confirms that this is the same doctor. And this is all the details about that doctor that third-party data source has collected. At the bottom, I see this, that his medical license was revoked from 1995 to 1998 for misrepresentation of the facts, and he was also he had a problem of personal addiction too. So from this I can kind of conclude that this doctor is not that trustworthy, and this is involved in one of the claims that actually was given to me. This was the fact that was not available in my rule engine. This is only identified in this area where I was able to import an external data source and link it together. So what happens when I find it? As an SIU, I can actually tag this information together. I found this claim, and I can expand that this was submitted by Jesse Pinkman, and I have an object called Walter White. This is the doctor that I was looking at. This is just another way of looking at your data. I'm just looking at it graphically. In this graph, what I can do is, since I concluded that Walter White, the doctor that I have in my suspicious doctor's data, is the same as the one that is reported in the claim, I can link them together just by doing this. And I can add offered services to and received services from. Now, as soon as I hit save, it's going to create that relationship, and that relationship going to persist in MarkLogic as a triple. I store the fact that I just identified, I just investigated. Now, any further investigation about Jesse Pinkman or Walter White would automatically flag the claim, since I have a suspicious doctor linked to it. I identified this information as SIU, but remember the last demo where you were building rules? This whole criteria can be fed to a rule now. You can assign weight to it. You can find that pattern right away before you even actually get to an SIU. So this is the way you can reduce the work your special investigation team can do. You can find this fraud faster in the early stages before you invest too much time and money into it, or worse, you actually pay off your claim. Let me do another search here. We'll just go back again. So I did the search, sudden stop in the middle of freeway, and I was looking at this claim, which was submitted by Jesse Pinkman. But I found actually another claim that matches the description. Let me go back to the search result. If you look closely, they both are about similar claims where vehicle was not traveling too fast and there is a sudden stop in the middle of freeway. I want to find out as an SIU if there's a commonality between those, whether they actually are part of a fraud ring, which is very important for as an insurance company for them to find. What I can do is I can start expanding on that. and I know that Jesse Pinkman now is linked to the first claim that has the same description. Now he's listed as a passenger. So he was the person sitting next to the driver where a similar description of a claim was submitted. Let's see who submitted this claim. And so Jane was the person who submitted this claim. We linked Jesse Pinkman to Walter White. And so with this, we have a network of 3 persons working together, it looks like. Jesse, Walter, and Jane. Now, you can link all of them together. This was this very simplistic case where Jesse Pinkman is acting as a passenger now. In next claim, he might be a driver, or in the next claim, Jane might be a passenger. But important thing is we identified these person to be of high risk. We just identify this pattern, and I can save that now. I can store that fact in MarkLogic, and will be available for my rules engine to analyze. This graph can get complex very easily. So you can visualize the simple pattern right away and from this graph. But what you eventually want to do is you want to build rules out of the pattern that you analyze. Now the same technique, we just looked at network analysis. I want to create an analogy here. Is you can apply the same technique in other business models too. For example, you have a customer, and that follows a pattern. You can actually rate that customer, since if it is a credit card, if it is a credit card company, if you are a bank, then you can rate your customer accordingly as well. How likely that customer is to commit a fraud in future. Or the same technique can be applied in MDM, where you want to identify if those customers have something in common. If they have a lot of commonalities, maybe they are the same customer. So these are all the demos I wanted to show you today. There is a lot you can do in this demo, but we don't have time to cover that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the presentation and kind of conclude that with some key takeaways. So we looked at that. We know that these are the required features and functionality that your business would need to catch a fraud or implement a good fraud model. With MarkLogic, you can implement all these in one single platform, simplifying your stack, technology stack, reducing the complexity, speeding up the claim processing. You want to have your customer to wait while the claims are processed. You can process them faster. So with this, this is all I wanted to show you today. I think as a follow-up, what we would be doing is we'll be posting these demos online, so it would be free for you to access. You can analyze that, you can look at that, you can play around with the demo code and implement it in your own projects. Thank you.
Thanks, Puneet. We've got time for questions if anyone has any. There we go. I get my exercise this way.
Great demo. Just one quick thing in this 6 icons that you have. I'm curious about predictive modeling. Do you have predictive modeling engine inside MarkLogic that we can have complex statistical algorithms built inside it? Or you're saying persist the required data and do the predictive modeling outside?
So in MarkLogic, MarkLogic is a database for most. You can bring your data into MarkLogic. Could be structured, unstructured, or any kind of information. What we have in MarkLogic is we have aggregation functions, we have APIs available, which you can use to build your predictive models. You can build it in outside engine, or you can use MarkLogic APIs to actually build those predictive models too. The real benefit I was trying to highlight here is you can have your predictive modeling done outside too, that's fine. But if you do it inside while the claims are being processed, you're speeding up the processing time. You don't have to wait for third system to sync up to your primary database to be able to analyze if the predictive model is actually matching or not. It just speeds up the process. But again, it's come to your choice if you want to do it inside or outside. For some businesses, it might be okay to do it outside.
Going once, going twice. Ah, there you go. Nope, you do. Actually, we want to record it, please.
The Link Explorer, is that part of MarkLogic 9, or is that a proprietary tool that you wrote, or what is it?
So all the demos we looked at today, they were just demos built using open source technology. They're not part of MarkLogic. It's just a demo that's running on top of the data. We were able to build those demos faster because all the features that we needed to build was already available in the platform. It can be open source. It's just one of the tools that our team worked together and we use that in our pre-sales exercises.
Because there are no other questions, I'm asking one more question here.
Thank you.
This is more of a technical question. The second demonstration that you showed us, could you please talk a little bit about what kind of document structure you had to build? As in, you have a claim document, you have a provider document, and so on and so forth. And where do you store these triples, right? And how do you join these documents to get that network analysis?
Yeah, answering that would probably take more than 4 minutes, but there's a lot that goes into it. But that demo uses the data itself, claims, that uses external data, that's a doctor's database, that uses the information that exists in those claims and doctor's data. What important thing that demo does is it converts all this information into triples that get stored in MarkLogic. And the way you extract triples, there are many ways you can do that. You can build your own custom pipeline that can extract part of the information from it. Or you can use MarkLogic 9 and again create those triple automatically once you define a template to do that. But yeah, I mean there's no good way to answer that without going into too much detail about it. You have to know what entities you want to analyze. You want to analyze what you have to know what entities you can extract out of the data. In the case of doctors, that was easy. There was one case. In the case of claims, I know there are parties involved in it, so I can extract party information from it. But it's up to you as a data expert, as an SME, to know what entities you want to extract and analyze.
I think we are done. Thank you, Puneet.
All right. Thank you very much.
Great presentation.